Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll talk a lot of football tonight. The scouting combine's getting ready to start. People are going to be getting their draft guides together. Of course, we got the guy that puts out the best draft guide ever. Mike Detillier joins us on the program tonight. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks so much for being with us. And
always my pleasure.
I can tell you, I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, Mike McCrawson, today. He was telling me how he's gotten your book since day one.
Long time.
And I was telling him, look, wait, man, I used to have a stack of those things before Katrina at my house.
Got a lot of them got wiped
out. But I tell you what, I look forward to it every year. Before we kick it off, tell the folks a little bit about it.
Well, again, we'll get it out first couple days of April, and you can get it on saintsreport.com, MikeDetillier.com, and so working on all the little details. And to me, I don't like to put it out before the combine or free agency because so many things change. So that means I got a short window to scoot and boot with it, so to speak. And so it will affect everything. Not so much the combine, because I always think there's probably a half dozen players it does affect. Either with a great workout, not so great workout, the medicals that may come back not good, and the off-the-field issues. And I know we'll talk about it later, but the biggest spotlight guy is Arden Key. Yeah, I mean, there's no question. Sure. In this combine, he is the one guy everybody wants to, almost like I want to touch, to make sure that he's there. What he does, how he does it, how he answers the question, because they know what happened last year and when he missed the spring. And so how he handles all of that and how he's come along with those off-the-field issues, because he plays a position that is the hardest to find today, even harder than quarterback. I'll tell you this story. Ed Orgeron gets the job on Saturday. I talked to him this Sunday. I told him, I said, listen, I know LSU's had a sinkhole at quarterback, but you got a better chance of finding a quarterback today than a great edge rusher. Now, you might think that Calavian Chason might be the guy, but you're not sure. They're hard to get, and there's only one in this draft class, and that's Bradley Chubb from North Carolina State. So once he comes off the board with the third pick, they got a lot of other selections after that you got to look at.
Mike, what does Mike Detillier look for when you're watching the combine?
And I'd be lying if I said I didn't watch how they stack up. It's competitive. Sure. Man, listen, I'm a competitor. Sure. If a guy at my position's running and lifting weights in the vertical, man, I want to do it too. And every bit as good as him. So, and when you're 20, 21 years old, it don't take much to press your button to say, hey, listen, I'll go out and I'll show this guy I can do it better than he can. So you do watch some of that, but you can't get totally caught up in that because you forget the one big question. Can he play football? Yes. Man, I'm not tremendously worried about if a guy's supposed to run a 4.44 and he runs a 4.48. Because I do know a little bit about track in the fact that from day to day, that time is going to vary. Just like if you lift in weights, sometimes at 225, you might be able to do it 30, then other days 34, the other days 28. It all varies. It doesn't tell you if you can play football at all. Warren Sapp had a great line. I did a radio show with him a couple years back. He said, I did 16. And the guy said, man, Warren, you should have done more than that. He was like, man, I ain't never saw them put that bench press machine out in the middle of the field, while I'm playing.
Yes.
So I think some of it is relevant, but you got to look at it as a small piece of the puzzle. I think the big part, again, goes down to the medicals. You cannot get that type of information today because of the HIPAA laws in the United States. And secondly, the interviews.
Yeah.
How much does football mean to you? Because everybody's going to say, man, I love to play. I want to be a football player. Prove it to me.
Yes.
Explain to me why football matters. And you know what? You can get fooled. Yeah. Because you don't know, what you don't know is what fame and fortune does to somebody at 21 years old. Man, listen, I can't tell you what fame and fortune does to somebody at 57 or 67, much less somebody at 21 that thinks they got the world by the teriyaki, so to speak. And so it's an educated guess. No more than that. It's an educated guess and maybe a feel about a player that fits what you do best. 2% of the players, no matter where they go, they all end up having the same production. The other 98 fit.
Right.
So that's the trick of the draft.
Yeah. The interviews, the medical you mentioned, those are key to these to the combine. But is it a little watered down now because most athletes are going to run at their school for their pro day?
Yeah, to a certain extent, I think it is a little bit. But my thing is, what is 3 weeks going to do you for these guys? Are you going to get that much faster in 3 weeks, that much stronger in 3 weeks?
Some guys get a little faster on the track that they're used to running on.
Because they're used to running on it more than anything. But you know what? You're not going to be a 4.8 guy one time and then run a 4.3 3 weeks later. Come on, you're going to be in that range. So you sort of know how people are going to run and how they. I think you want to see the competitive nature of the beast here. To kind of put it bluntly, you want to see the competitive part in those guys and how well they adapt to people telling them what to do, coaching, and it's quick. We go from one station to the next, to the next, to the next. This is what you're supposed to do. Now, here's the thing. You've been training now for months on how to do all those drills.
It should be second nature.
So you should do it. But then you watch it and you're like, man, these guys, have they ever done some of these drills before? And then some of them, they know it. I mean, they come out of it, they look fantastic.
Right. As far as the fit goes, obviously a lot of that goes into the scouting. Some of that has to do with the combine, the interviews, and the medical. But it is about scouting that player throughout his career in college and trying to project that guy, what he can do in your particular lineup, in your particular system.
That's why that regional scout is paramount. Because, a coach, he can watch bits and pieces. And, if you Sean Payton, okay, you got things to do from September all the way through to January. So you might watch a bit and a piece of a game, but you're not sitting there watching one particular guy. That regional scout has seen him through all of that process and knows the coach. Now, again, coaches have a bad habit of lying. I've never heard a coach say, I shouldn't say never, but it's rare that they tell you something really bad about a player.
Right.
Now, they may tell you a little negative, which when they start to do that, that's when I say something's really wrong. But most of the time, the position coach, trainer, people they've played against, teammates, they sort of know who can play and who can't at that particular level. And that's what that regional scout does extremely well. And with the Saints, they set up that board. Jeff Ireland and scouts, they set up the board north-south. And then they give it to Mickey and Sean, and they do it east and west. Needs, what fits, what doesn't, who looks good here, who doesn't maybe fit in our scheme. So there is always an adjustment from what the scouts saw to when they hand it over to Sean and Mickey, who had the final say.
You mentioned about coaches not being maybe truthful with the media, but how about coaches being truthful with other coaches about their players?
Some do and some don't. Some do and some don't. That was a well-known coach, and he's on TV today. He would never tell you anything negative about a player. And I just thought maybe it was just media. But he was like that with everybody. Everybody's great. Everybody's fantastic. That sort of thing. And so some are a lot more truthful than others about somebody's negatives or off the field issues. And so a lot of it is guesswork. You trying to fit a guy into what you do, and hopefully he'll fit into your locker room, what you do offensively, defensively, special teams. But it's a little, it's a roll of the dice, no matter what.
Absolutely.
Listen, people miss on veteran free agents who have been in this league 5, 6, 7 years. So doggone well they're going to miss on a guy who's never took a snap in the National Football League.
Mike, when we grew up, Senior Bowl, East West Shrine Game, they had those games, obviously, that the seniors went to. They were something that people watched all the time. You never really took your eye. You couldn't wait to see them. Players looked to go to those games. It was an honor to be invited to those games. How about today?
Man, if you're a first-round pick, it's rare. Most of them don't show for that. I was impressed at Baker Mayfield. And he knew he had a little bit riding on this. And he goes and works out the week in Mobile. He didn't have to do that. Now, I did think two guys that'll end up in round one had to. One was Josh Allen, the quarterback from Wyoming, who had a horrific, so to speak, 2017 season. They couldn't protect him. His receivers had all graduated, but he didn't play well. And in a conference that's not noted for having big-time defensive players, he was erratic all season long. And then the defensive end from UT San Antonio, Marcus Davenport, who's a project player. I see him being put in the top 10. Man, if I look at that resume and you slip that to me and say, I want him in the top 10, my thing is, you're going to get me fired, dude. He's not ready for prime time yet. The other part about Marcus is, he is really good on game day.
Right.
You can't watch him in practice because sometimes he doesn't practice hard, which always kind of draws up a little bit of a red flag. But, those guys are the exception to the rule than, per se, years ago, like a Jim Plunkett, Archie Manning, who went 1, 2, 3 with Pastorini.
Yes.
They all went to the bowl games, every one of them.
Yeah, sure.
But today, those guys aren't, and not having it open for juniors is the other part.
Do you think that'll, because that was one of the line of questions, do you think that'll happen one day? Consider the juniors are now a big part of all drafts, that again, especially like the Senior Bowl, where, again, it is the Senior Bowl, but where you've got NFL scouts that are there, the coaches are coaching. Do you think that they'll open it up for the junior eligibles?
I don't think the Senior Bowl ever will.
Right.
But if I'm another bowl, I think about that seriously. Because I think I've opened up the Pandora box where I can get a lot of good-looking prospects come play. And I'm all about putting people's butts in the stands.
Well, of course, and TV.
And TV.
Right.
And so here, if I could get, and I'm not going to get all the top players, but if I could get 5, 6, 8 of the top juniors out of, say, the top 15, and I've done something there, and you're going to watch because it's a novelty right off the bat.
Right. What about the underclassmen coming in? How strong is that group this year?
I think it defines every draft class today. That it's rare that you find seniors that hang around. Most of them leave if they're big-time prospects after 3 years. So when you find a senior, that's a little bit out of the ordinary.
Right.
So it's going to define this class too. And I think where you see some depth is at wide receiver. Okay. They got a lot of wide receivers. Running back depth. Again, in the second, third rounds of the draft. Once you get past the top 4 quarterbacks, who all probably go in the top 15, it's a lot of question marks. Offensive line, I think, is better interior than out on the edge. There's a lot of project guys at that tackle position. Never enough pass rushers. Defensive tackle's pretty solid. Linebacking core, just not enough there either. Cornerback, I think there's a pretty good amount of that. And same thing at the safety.
As good as last year?
No, not as good as last year, but it's above average. And so this class can't measure up to that 2017 group, which I thought was a really, really strong class.
Yeah. Mike, you mentioned wide receiver. I think that's one of the needs of the Saints. When you look at the wide receivers that are out there, talk about a prototypical wide receiver that you think fits in a Saints system that may be there. I don't want to say first round, but maybe some of the later rounds that the Saints might look at.
I think, what's going to happen here is the Saints, if you look at script, there have been a team in the past that has went for one signature free agent. If it was Keenan Lewis, if it was people that you had with Kobe Fleener, who was a big-time guy. Last year it was Larry Wolford. And then they fill in, they let the market kind of calm down, they fill in with 3 or 4 free, like they did last year, solid guys. with a Manti Te'o, with an A.J. Klein, with an Alex Okafor. Chase Daniel came in late,
yes,
but really somebody else paid most of the bill on Chase. So you got him at a pretty good price at that point. So I think that's going to tell you a lot about how high they go with a wide receiver.
You feel it's a need, though, right?
I feel it's a major need for this football team. There is nobody, other than Michael Thomas, who you're going to count
right
on. Brandon Coleman's been highly erratic, and people, he's a great blocker. Okay, he's good as a blocker, but man, I need him to catch passes too.
Yes.
Willie Snead was in the Witness Protection Agency last year.
Yes.
Ted Ginn is a speed guy, but he's no longer a young speed guy.
True.
So you're looking to fill in there. Where you go with it'll be interesting. Eric, it would not surprise me if they don't address wide receiver in free agency, that this team take 2 wide receivers come draft time.
Mike, do you like any particular free agent wide receivers? Look, we saw LaRon Landry get really paid with Miami. We don't know if they're going to end up keeping him or moving him. I thought he was a guy that would fit perfect in the Saints system, but you knew you couldn't pay him what he was going to be asking for. Any guys out there that you like that say, man, I think this guy works for the Saints?
That list is going to dwindle down quite a bit, too, by the time you get ready.
Yes.
And listen, I was like you. Jarvis would fit what they did. I mean, beautifully.
Yes.
Not only as a receiver, but he's such a terrific downfield blocker.
Right. And the speed, too.
And that element of having somebody opposite Mike. But also you got to look at the money element here. That Mike Thomas is entering year 3. And eventually, I want to get paid.
Right.
And so he is going to be the highest paid wide receiver the Saints have ever paid. And so you're going to shell out a lot of money. So it's kind of a mix and match here on where you want to go with it. For me, if he's not a starter type guy, to me, I'll pass.
Right.
I can find a backup somewhere. And I'll go in the draft with something. I think the interesting player in this free agency class for the Saints would be Tyler Eifert with Cincinnati. And I don't know what they're going to do with him. But here's a guy that would fit what the Saints do offensively. He's really a big receiver playing tight end.
Yes.
And when he's been healthy, he's put up really strong numbers. And he's catching balls from Andy Dalton.
Right.
So it's not like he's catching them from Drew Brees at this point. So kind of what happens with him. But if you're looking for a fit guy, and because of the fact this team has shown they want their tight end to be a big part of the offense, man, if Tyler Eifert is a guy that I feel good about medically, that he can pass my fit and he's fine, he's my guy maybe I throw a lot of money at. A lot more than, say, Jimmy, because of the fact with Graham, there's a lot of rumblings out in the Northwest. His knees, which he's had surgery on, has given him a lot of issues. And I think with Sean, I think they could kiss and make up pretty quickly.
Right.
Listen,
you believe that can happen?
Listen, if you can help me win, that wouldn't be a big issue. But I do think Eifert may well be the guy if he's out there, and the Saints maybe would cut him that pretty big check.
Talk about cornerback. Everybody was talking about Malcom Butler. First of all, what do you think about Malcom Butler? Do you think what happened in the Super Bowl hurts Malcom Butler on the open market? And then, do you really feel? I feel it's one of the critical needs for this team is cornerback going into free agency. If you can strike gold in the draft like you did before, good luck. But I think free agent would be the way I'd go for a cornerback. But talk about Butler, and then talk about the cornerback position, where you think that is in terms of the needs of the Saints.
With Butler, it really hurt his financial stock. There's no question about it. You're talking about the greatest coach of our lifetime.
Right.
Sits you down in the biggest game of the year. And don't tell me it wasn't because there's some friction there.
That's got to be.
Big time friction. And there is no doubt that if the Saints don't go offense with a big money free agent, I think it's Butler.
You think they're going Butler?
Listen, they had to do a lot of work on Butler, because they were real close to cutting that deal. And every time, and that's the crazy thing about how the Super Bowl lapsed out. Here was a guy that the Patriots, every time you came close to a deal, would ask a little bit more for, and a little bit more for, and a little bit more for. And he starts with 97% of the snaps, and he plays one down on special teams.
Right.
I think that certainly hurts his financial stock. And a lot of teams will say, hey, listen, if he don't get along with Belichick, what is he here? But, I think Sean and Mickey have done a lot of work on Malcom Butler because they wouldn't have done that to come up with this contract that they had in place for him had they been able to make the trade.
Mike, what do you think about Malcom Butler when you look at and you grade him out?
I didn't think he had his best season last year.
Either.
I thought he played much better in 2016 and 2017. I think a lot of it was distractions all season long. The part of, man, I could have made a lot of money signing. I could have been traded. You kind of strung me out a little bit. And you get into October, and you never know with Belichick that he would say, just like he did with Jamie Collins, hey, you know what? You're out of here. You want too much money? But what he did with Jamie is he buried him. Yeah, I'll trade you. And then he trades him to the Browns.
Right.
Now, Jamie got paid. He did get paid, but he buried him to the worst team in the NFL. And I do think that that's sometimes getting the psyche of a player. But I think Malcom Butler is a good starting cornerback in the National Football League. And it is a position now. You just can't have two guys.
Agreed.
Eric, you got to have 3 and 4 guys today.
At least.
The way that the league is spreading out all over the place, and you have to be able to adjust to cover the third receiver, a tight end now who's like another receiver. Safeties and linebackers can't cover those guys today. Oh, very few can.
Right.
So I kind of look at it this way. If they don't make the big money play for a tight end, and I would think it would be Eifert, then I think the big money play would be toward Malcom Butler.
What does it say that Belichick went with Stephon Gilmore and didn't pay Butler?
Well, he thought he was a better player.
Right.
Bottom line. And I think he thought he could get Butler at a cheaper price. I think he played a little bit of poker with him and lost at that point. He more than likely should have traded him off when he had that opportunity. But I think Bill looks at it this way. What he had set up going into the season, Butler is more valuable to me here than he is that draft choice somewhere down the line. And if you look at Bill, he's had great success, but not so much in the draft. It's been with free agents and guys kind of on the street on the last kind of tag to get in there. Hey, if you can't play for me, hey, your career is over.
Right.
And so I think he felt Butler was better with him than he was without him on that football team, and they didn't have a great pass rush. So you needed that cornerback out there.
Mike, you've been doing this a long time. What's the biggest difference over the last 2 years with the Saints draft as opposed to what we've seen where again, the drafts were dismal? Did Jeff Ireland make that much difference? Was it the scouting? Was it a combination of all?
I think a little bit of combination of all, but one thing sometimes you get away from is you look at potential and you forget about how productive those guys are at the college level. You had a couple drafts, you looked at that resume and you were like, you picked them guys this high?
Yeah.
And you got no production, not much. When you looked at Lattimore, Ramchak, Marcus Williams, Kamara, Hendrickson, and even when Anzalone was healthy, he was productive.
Right.
My thing is, I think they've gone back more to, okay, I want the really good athlete, but I also want the guy that's been productive at the college level. How many guys can you name right off the top that weren't really productive college players and made it big in the NFL? I mean, few and far between. That's just a handful of those guys. And so I think they went back more to let's look at the production here and also to the fit, how well that guy fits into what we do. And sometimes you need another voice to kind of push you toward those particular deals. And we all know Sean Payton has got a big say, especially with those early picks.
And of course, there seems to be a trust factor with Jeff Ireland as well with Sean Payton.
Yeah, and you know what? I think he had a trust factor with other guys. But
well, he was let down.
He was let down, but how much of this did he have his fingers involved too?
Right.
That we don't know about.
Sure. No, I would
How
agree
much
with that.
did he kind of get involved and say,
I want this guy.
I want him, and that's the way it is.
Right.
And we've known assistant coaches to wave the flag for certain players that they want with it. Ryan Pace had his ear for years. He's a general manager with the Bears today. And so I don't know how much all of that has changed to the point where I think they maybe philosophically got away from the potential guys and have went more toward guys that have been very productive at the college level.
Mike, a lot of people talk about quarterback in this particular draft. I've talked about the 5 years as a first round as opposed to a 4-year player if you're a second, third, fourth, etc. Drew Brees, obviously, we'll talk about his contract a little bit later. Do you think this is a draft where they go after a quarterback, or is this the one where they wait one more year before they strike?
I think they wait, to be honest with you. One thing for sure, Sean has waved that banner pretty high for Taysom Hill.
Mm-hmm. Do you buy it?
No, I don't buy it. No,
I
saw him at Brigham Young. Listen, to be honest, highly recruited football player, 4 years at Brigham Young, hurt every year. He was never a high percentage passer at Brigham Young, which he should have been extremely high. Great athlete. Can Sean take him and mold him? And that's something I think he'll be.
Is he accurate enough?
That's always been the question mark with me with Taysom Hill. Mm-hmm. Is he accurate in the pocket? Now, he's an athlete. Sure. There ain't many guys that can run like what he can. But can you throw the ball accurately from the pocket? And you came from that type system at BYU. And that's what draws up the flag for me that, okay, you can look good in practice. Put him in a game. And don't tell me about preseason. Because preseason's a bit of a mirage, too, with everything. So, but I do think that unless something dramatically would happen, I think this team passes on a quarterback in this draft class. And if I want to win today,
which you're trying to do, right?
Which I want to win now. Come in the 6th and 7th round. Wouldn't I look at a guy that maybe, he's not a starter for me, but man, he can play special teams. I go for that guy. Right. Well, I want another guy holding the clipboard. So, and I don't think they're ready to move on from Drew Brees.
Right.
Like it or not, he's going to get paid.
Yes.
He's going to get paid big bucks.
Well, let's talk about it now. Because again, as I mentioned on the radio show this week, they're backing up the Brinks truck for Cousins up in New York.
Unbelievable.
He's going to break the bank there. What do you do with Drew Brees now? I mean, I don't think Drew Brees gives the hometown discount, but you're going to have to pay him. What I've questioned all along is the dummy years on the contract down the line. At the same time, you may be having to pay a lot more, having to pay Thomas. All these draft choices you've gotten over the last couple of years have been very, very productive. That you're going to have to pay those guys eventually, right around the time that maybe Breeze's dummy years are coming up. And then you've got dead money, much like you're looking at this $18 million of dead money that they're having to deal with now. How much do you think he gets, and how do you think this is structured?
If it's a long-term deal, then you're going to have a lot of dead money.
Right.
You're going to have a lot of, and that's part of the ticket today that you're dealing with. And the cap continuously goes up and continuously goes up. If it's a short-term deal, then I think it'll be a short-term with an option. So basically a 2-year contract. But if they sign him to a 4-year deal, then a lot of that money is going to be credit carded.
Right.
Down the road, we'll deal with it when we deal with it. So, and I think that's maybe the holdup here. And I've never felt they would cut a real fast deal. Come on. It's like, come on, you cover politics. Did they pass a bill right off the bat? No. Come on, they wait to the final minutes before all that's done. And that's what's going to happen with the Drew Brees deal.
Well, Condon wants to see what everybody else is getting as well, right? I mean, with the market's been set.
And true that Drew has been involved in a lot of NFLPA works, and he doesn't want to put a stick in the spoke. Okay, I'll take a shorter deal and this type of money, and then somebody will say, well, wait a minute. That's not going to affect Kirk Cousins. But the potential of it affecting an A.J. McCarron, a Sam Bradford, a Case Keenum, he's thinking about that part of it. So
I think people forget about that. That again, how engaged he was with the NFLPA, and he even wants to set the bar for the next quarterback. He's trying to set the bar, and that's that's why we've never seen a hometown discount here in New Orleans.
No, and it's not going to happen if you think it's going to happen. And my thing is always the people that bang that drum about take less money. Well, let me go to your workplace and cut your money and give it to somebody else and see how you feel about it. Now, a lot of people might tell you that, but come on, nobody in reality is going to do that. And so the market is for him, and if he doesn't get it here, somebody else is going to be willing to pay that type of money. And the thing about it is, are you sure of any of the young quarterbacks coming out? Yeah, Sam Darnold's talented, but he's a work in progress. Josh Rosen is a guy that's thin as could be. Will he hold up in the NFL? And he's got an abrasive personality. Anybody who's been around him has seen that particular part. Josh Allen. There's no way I would take him with a top 10 pick, but I think that probably will happen. Now, he's got a real strong arm and everything else, but he's inaccurate in the short and intermediate areas of the field. Baker Mayfield. He's the wild card because any guy that can complete almost 70% of his passes at the college level, you got what you got.
Yeah.
But also, you got a little bit of a tiger by the tail here. A guy that has shown that his emotions get the best of him.
Yes.
And if that happens to a receiver or a linebacker, Eric, you know what? So be it.
Right.
I can't have that happen at quarterback.
Sure.
I can't have that guy. He's got to be the coolest cat in the room and be able to take all that. Now, can he mature from that? Sure. But I think he's the wild card of the bunch. And again, he's 6 foot tall. Yeah. So for some people, for some, not everybody, that deal is if he ain't 6'4" or 6'5", I don't want him.
Right. What about his accuracy, which is a key in this offense?
He can throw it from the pocket really well. It's funny. He was at the Manning camp, and we started talking, and he was like, I padded my game, on my own because I think I move around pretty well, and I am who I am. But man, Drew Brees is a guy. Growing up in Austin, where Drew grew up, man, I watched Drew and how he throws the football, and he just went on and on and on about Drew Brees and how he watches him and how he can throw the football. And he said, again, the key for him was him being able to find a spot where he can spot receivers downfield. And well, listen, when you're 5'11" and 6 foot tall, most of the time you got to be a movement guy.
Sure.
Drew moves a little bit east and west, but he stays in the pocket and make those throws. And that's what he told me. I watch a lot of that. How he finds that guy and his accuracy skills. And no matter what, if you go back, he finished with his year at Texas Tech and his 3 years at Oklahoma right under 70%. It's like 69% passer. Eric, that's remarkable that he could throw the football that accurate. And if I play in Oklahoma, man, I know who I got to stop.
Sure.
I got to stop him. And I'm coming at him different ways. And that's the thing that's changed in college football, similar to the pros. It used to be, and I'm all concerned about the edge rush. And I still am. But now, you know what I'm worried about? Right up the chute. Because that takes away my ability to walk up in the pocket and make a throw.
Yes.
That's why I got to have good center guard play. They're every bit as important today as they've ever been in pro football. And I'm saying it's getting to be that way in college football too. Yeah.
Final question before we go to break. Chase Daniel is an unrestricted free agent as well. Expect him back?
Yeah, I do. I think, Drew likes him. They get along and they communicate well. And he's in that film room with him. And, that communication part is there. And I think he returns.
Are you comfortable with Chase Daniel if something was to happen to Drew Brees?
Tell me for how long?
Well, it'd be I'm talking short term. Long term, you might as well just mail the season.
Yeah, short term, I'd be okay with Chase Daniel. He's no Nick Foles.
No, right.
But, how many of those guys are hanging around?
True.
And now with the news with Carson Wentz, that the knee may be a little bit longer, man, a lot of people, trade for Nick Foles. Man, I'd be an idiot, if I'm the Eagles to deal him off to somebody. Yeah. And why would I deal him off to an NFC team? Yes. Man, you go find your own quarterback. I got my own issues to deal with. And so that's why I think Foles is sort of off the board. I think the intrigue guy for me in all of this is Sam Bradford. Now, he's as brittle as they come. But, man, we've seen him. When he's healthy, good gracious. He broke Drew Brees' passing percentage rate 2 years ago. And after what I saw in the first 2 weeks, Drew would have had a hard time catching him up the way he was throwing it, especially in that first game against the Saints. He was drilling them.
Yes.
And those weren't just little throws. He was putting that in space. He's interesting as a player. I better have a really good backup. Because, my fear is that he can't last 16 games.
Which has been the issue with him throughout
all his career.
No doubt. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, Mike Detillier is with us. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We are going to open up the phone line tonight, 866-3200. They'll put it up on the screen when they're ready. And we'll take your questions as well for Mike Detillier. Hang in there. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports.
Air conditioning, heating, and refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhardt has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Amco Fence, locally owned and operated since 1976. Fully licensed and insured and a member of the BBB, Amco serves both residential and commercial customers. If you're looking to repair, replace, or install a fence for security or aesthetic reasons, Amco Fence supplies wooden, metal, chain link, vinyl, and ornamental or automatic gates. Amco aims to satisfy your fencing needs. Amco Fence, 504-468-9559 or AmcoFenceCompany.com.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, Mike Detillier joins us on the program. Always a guy that I get emails constantly. Get Mike back on the show. Get Mike. It's like I got to bring Mike on the show every week. I try to get him once a month, and he's very, very cordial with his time, and we really appreciate it.
That's why you pay me them big bucks,
yeah,
Eric.
I got to slide under the table on there. You saw it, baby.
That's
you got
the salary cap.
What about Delvin Breaux? What do the Saints do with him? Do they tender him so that, again, they protect him with a draft choice? Do they take a chance that he's going to come back to New Orleans without any tender? Do they allow him to go on the open market and let other teams take a shot at him?
I think he's on the open market.
Really? No draft choice at all?
I think they're willing to take that chance with Delvin. You get paid in this league, Eric, but talent. And he is talented. The other part is you get paid for availability. Answer the bell. And you know, listen, when players start to get, and this is part of me that kind of sticks throughout my 30 years doing it, when players start to have one injury after another, it's a series of it, it don't go away. It doesn't. And so you're going to have to make that choice what you want to do with Delvin. I think they'd like him back at the right price on this football team. And it certainly was an ugly incident. When he was legitimately hurt.
Right.
And you had the coach sort of call him out on that. And then you find out later it wasn't anything to do with the player, but with the medical staff at that point. So I'd like to see him back. But again, I do know how the NFL works. And you do get paid for your talent. And you do get paid if you show up and if you're around. And it's just not been good for Delvin when you look at from a physical standpoint of him holding up.
Well, never in his career, really. I mean, even going back to when he was trying to get on at LSU.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been often injured.
That's a tough thing because, man, I think the world of him as a guy, as a player. He's a super young man, and he'll find a place in the NFL if it's not with the Saints.
Right. And if he's healthy, he's
healthy, he's a really good football player. And you know what? Sometimes you need to change the scenery. Look at Patrick Robinson.
Right.
And
look at him. Look at Malcolm Jenkins.
We were laughing about this. Bobby and I were talking. He was like, man, you remember back in the training camp, in his first year, Greg Williams would scream and holler at him. He took more eatings than any guy I've ever heard in that Greg Williams time. Sure. Greg was on him constantly and really kind of beat him down a little bit. Now, he thought by doing that, then he could grab that hand and pull him back up. He didn't take well to that. Then he goes, he kind of bounces around a little bit, Indianapolis, and all of a sudden he goes to Philly, and everything works for him there. It goes to show what I've said about fit.
Yes.
And he was the right player, right scheme, right situation in Philadelphia, and it all worked out for him. And yet with here, he was struggling. And you could tell it was not so much the talent, but almost between the ears.
Right. And the pressure as well.
Yeah, the pressure of playing up to being a first-round pick.
Yeah.
What was immense for him.
Yeah. What about Willie Snead?
Depends on what he wants. I don't think
you don't think they're going to tender him?
The market's not going to be a lot for Willie out there. When you look at him coming off that season, and everybody's going to question, okay, you had a really good season in 2016, but what happened last year in that offense? With a superstar receiver in Michael Thomas, where were you? Now, you might say, well, I got suspended early, and then I had the hamstring issues. But, you know, NFL people, they're going to try to get you at the cheapest price.
Yes, no
So
doubt.
I think he could return, but I think it's probably a 50-50 shot here. And it would depend on money, on what he's looking at this stage. If I'm Willie, I sign a one-year deal. I sign a one-year contract somewhere.
Prove it to me.
Prove it, and then I get back on the market.
Mike, I talked about it a little bit on my show today. A lot of media in this town doesn't want to touch this. I know that, again, you're willing to tell it like it is. Mr. Benson is ill. He's in the hospital. We don't know what the situation is. Obviously, they're keeping that very close to the vest. But what does the New Orleans Saints and the New Orleans Pelicans look like in a post-Tom Benson world?
I have no idea. And I think that's the big question mark. You know, for the first time, aren't you hearing Anthony Davis question that?
Oh, yeah.
Man, you know, this was a guy that was as politically correct about saying things as Drew Brees has been throughout the years.
Sure.
Then all of a sudden now, the last couple of weeks,
I want to win a championship.
I want to win a championship, and sometimes you got a time when you leave, and sometimes you stay.
Talked about Kevin Garnett and toiling in Minnesota for so long, and getting a championship in Boston.
I'll say this, and I tell reporters about this about Coach O, and having known him all these years. He doesn't give you the whole story, but if you listen, he gives you a bit and a piece of it.
You read between the lines with Anthony Davis.
And read between the lines with Anthony Davis. Now, I think we don't know what will happen in the future with it, because the big question mark is, how will the team be run? And you can say nothing will change.
Right.
Everything, all the people are in place, but has always changed. Nothing stays the same in life. Nothing.
Right.
Either you get better or you get worse. It's one of the two at that particular point. So I think it's a big question mark. I think it affects more the Pelicans than it does the Saints. Because I think in the NFL, if you're willing to whip out them dead presidents, I'm your way.
Right.
I'm coming your way. And you have a signature coach who has put himself right back.
True.
If he's not on the mountaintop, but he's right there. And one of the all-time greats in Drew Brees. So for, say, a 3 or 4 year period, I think you'll be okay. I think it's more of an effect on what may happen. Pelicans than anything else of, I don't know. And who knows what will happen when all this is done.
Right.
And a lot of people feel as though, and not to sound morbid, but if with something that's going to happen with Mr. Benson, this will be right back in court again.
Well,
back in court again.
Mike, I'm with you, because look, in a city where you can't keep a secret, right? I mean, seriously, you can't keep a secret in New Orleans. Forget about it. You can't. Everybody knows somebody, and everybody else is.
Everybody knows your business.
Everybody knows. Look, no one has been able to find out about what happened in that settlement. It has been eerily quiet. Again, under lock and key. And I'm with you. I think that if Mr. Benson passes, that the whole can of worms opens up again with the LeBlancs.
I don't think there's any doubt this ends up right back in court. And you maybe have an uglier issue than you had the first time. And listen, that wasn't nice to begin with, but this may be even worse round 2 of all of this. But, you know, you understand, you know, and I've got an elderly mom. You know, she's 88 years old.
Right.
So, you know, I understand the mortality part about it. My dad lived until he was 86. So you dealing with that day to day, and you might say, you know, things are going to be the same, and they dramatically change, you know, at that point in time. And I think for both organizations, that's going to be an adjustment period. But the bigger question mark for me, because it is so competitive, is going to be in the NBA. Because I think in the NFL, you got cash, you got a signature coach, signature quarterback, I'm headed your way. In the NBA, you've got your star player speaking out for the first time about, hey, I'm here till 2021.
Well,
But, you know, that constant deal about, and I know a lot of people kind of throw it under the rug, about the Celtics having an interest in trying to piece a deal. And, that's never going to happen. There is something to that constant fire.
Yes, right. No, I'm with you, Mike. And look, we wish Mr. Benson the best. We hope he can recover. But again, being realistic, we know that, again, that it's not going to be the same once he's gone. And then with the Anthony Davis situation, it's where he was at the All-Star game in front of the national media, sitting down with Rachel Nichols of ESPN.
He didn't have to say it.
He didn't have to say it. He came out and said, then he had to clarify it today with New Orleans media. He's sending a message to this organization.
I agree with you. I think whatever, and listen, he's a real sharp guy.
Oh, yes.
And so maybe that was calculated on his part. Man, if I tell some of the New Orleans media, it'll be a local story.
Yes.
If I tell it to Rachel, it's a national story. And that's a totally different worm in the turn,
Absolutely.
so to speak. And so,
first time ever he's spelled both like that. First
I'll say
time
this,
ever.
when you listen to him talk and Drew Brees, there's a lot of similarity.
Yes, agreed.
They company line, we're going to do this, always positive, look to the next game, no matter what. That's the first time I've ever heard him walk away from that line and then talking about what will happen with Boogie Cousins, what happens in that spot. Eric, I think this is the pre-course for what you may see down the line.
I don't think there's any doubt.
I think that's the opening shot.
And I think that the people of New Orleans that follow Pelicans basketball should remember Chris Paul. And look, I talked about it on my radio show today. In the beginning, I had my feelings hurt like everybody else when Chris Paul left. But I understand why Chris Paul left. I understand why Chris Paul left, because Chris Paul was trying to get a championship, and he's been chasing a championship ever since. He did everything he could for the organization. The organization, when they traded Tyson Chandler, when David West ultimately was leaving, it was over for him at that point. Anthony Davis is in the same boat now, and he's in a situation where he's hooked his wagon to Boogie Cousins. Look, that's a critical question right now. Oh, come on! How do you sign a guy and give him max money that has blown out his Achilles at 6'11", 275? It's very difficult. I mean, that's a difficult. Now your superstar saying, he's my guy, I want him.
You know, in the past, an Achilles injury was a career killer.
No doubt.
Today you can come back.
You can.
How much of that Boogie Cousins will return? Now, nobody comes back 100%.
True.
That part, you can take that out. You know, and talking to so many, because I do work with Thibodeau Regional Medical Center, a lot of their staff will say, you know, some guys come back and some women come back, you know, and they get back into that 90s and 80s, but they're rare. Most people have issues with the Achilles after it's torn.
Right. Or the knee or the ankle.
But here's the deal. How many of them are that big?
Right.
And running that court constantly? That's a totally different issue. But I think what we're looking at here is Saints-Pelicans is two different issues, because the Saints have a history under Sean Payton of winning, getting into the playoffs. He did have the 3 straight 7 and 9s. Get you back in the playoffs. They have a Super Bowl title. You've been to 2 NFC championship games.
And the future's bright.
And the future looks good. What they have is tremendous. What have the Pelicans won? Zilch.
Right. Nothing. And you've got a volatile situation with general manager and head coach. Ultimately, you don't know if they'll be back one way or the other as well. So it's a much different situation.
And even if you're the 8th seed into the playoff, come on. What does that
Well, that told me everything when he said, I want to win. I'm not, you know, the word has always been from about Anthony Davis, get him in the playoffs, he'll be happy. No, he made a comment. He put the line down and said, oh, no, that's not good enough. I want to win, and I want to win a championship.
And so the pressure is on Anthony, too, now.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Because now he sees that he always had Boogie. He got my back. And it's like Drew Brees now. He got Ingram, Kamara, Michael Thomas on the offensive side, and 4 of your 5 starting offensive linemen are 26 years of age or younger. Man, I can spout off a little bit about, hey, this football team's going to be real good in the future. Now, you need to do a little retooling on defense. But my thing about it is you've won because of what you've done on offense.
Yes.
Bottom line.
Offensive line out.
And so that's what's done it for you. With the Pelicans, they have never had that type twosome and for that short period of time. And boy, it brings me back to when Pete, you know, and he blew out that knee, making a crazy pass, jumping.
So similar, isn't it?
And they were in the playoff run. Truck Robinson, Aaron James, all those guys that were making that run. And I've seen Pete do that so many times. And I went to 2 of his camps, and he would actually jump up in the air mid-court and throw the ball between his legs and sink it. Now, on this play, he didn't try to hit the basket. He threw a pass.
Yes, he did.
He landed awkward, and that was it for the New Orleans Jazz. That basically sent the Jazz to Utah.
There's no doubt about it. That sent the Jazz to Utah. You're 100% correct on that. Let's grab some phone calls. Mike Detillier is with us. To Homa and Greg. Greg, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Greg.
Hey, guys. I got 2 quick questions. First question is, is there a position you feel on the Saints that needs to be addressed, free agency versus the draft? And what about the tight end position and Kobe Fleener? And I'll hang up and listen.
Okay, Greg, I think with Kobe, he's going to be a summer cut, so to speak, because of the salary cap.
Post June 1st.
Yeah, post June 1st.
I'm surprised he got the $3.4 million bonus, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm surprised.
I really thought he'd be gone the first day that he'd be gone when that was.
Hard to admit a mistake, though. Sometimes, Eric. It's hard to admit I made that mistake with Fleener. So who knows how this all works out? But I think tight end is a big issue. The other position they have got to address is linebacker. On another team, A.J. Klein, Manti Te'o, Craig Robinson, they backup players.
Yes.
Now, Anzalone, I think, is a starter in the NFL, but just like his college days, the book was on him.
Right.
He's hurt a lot. I've got to address that linebacker issue because I do not have a signature guy, and I got to find that guy that can cover. Right. Because that's where you see the big difference in the game today. So linebacker would be the spot.
I've talked about athletic linebackers, what they need. I believe they need that. Do you think they need the thumper too?
Well, I think you could get by with A.J. and Manti Te'o in the middle. And the one thing with Manti, when he's been healthy, he's been a solid player. Klein was hit and miss this year.
Yes.
You saw he had some games he looked good, other games he was a lot.
Te'o played really well down the stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. Out of position. Craig Robinson's a guy. Every year, and he would tell me the story, man, they're looking to cut me, they're looking to get rid of me, but yet he can play all three positions, play special teams, whatever it needs, he's there. But I do think in this draft class, you better get you an edge guy. You better get you an outside linebacker because they're plentiful. And I think you got a shot here, either in round 1 or round 3, that you could get yourself that starting outside linebacker. Oh, potentially down the road, that starting outside linebacker. On the strong side.
Right. Toby is in Metairie. Toby, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Toby.
Yeah, Eric and Mike, do you think the Saints take Arden Key at 27, or is there too much baggage? And if they don't, do they try to move back and try and pick up a second-round draft choice? And I'll listen and thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question, Toby. It really is. Man, my thing is I can't get my hands on a guy like him. If he's still there at 27, which I'm going to put in question, man, I pick him. He's so talented as a player. But I want to get to know, kind of what happened, what kind of led to all these series of events that has happened.
Well, there's a relationship between Coach O and Peyton, right?
Oh, yeah. They were real close when he was on the staff here. He's been to LSU. And, here's the other part. Ryan Nielsen, who's the defensive line coach, Coach O coached him at Southern Cal. His first job was at Ole Miss. He was Coach O's defensive line coach. So you don't think that there's a little bit of a connection there? Sure. There is. If all the check marks go off, correct? If he's at 27, I'll pick him and don't look back. Because I can't get a guy that can rush the quarterback like what Arden Key can. So that would be simple. Now, if the right guy's not there, here's what happens at 27. Teams were picking first, second, third in the second round. Man, I don't know if that guy's going to last to me. Maybe I can make a little deal to move up for a player. If I'm the Saints, I think about that because I don't have a second-round pick. I would move back a little bit and let's see what kind of bounty I can come out of this with. And you're not going to hit on another class like you did in 2017.
You hope you can, but you probably won't.
But if I always believe this in the draft. You win with numbers. You look at Jimmy Johnson, what he did with Dallas. You look at with the 49ers and Walsh. What did they have in common? Numbers. They didn't hit on all those picks, but boy, the picks they hit on, they hit big, and they had it with a lot of draft choices, and I think that's a big part of it.
Mike, talk about some state prospects that are going to be drafted.
For Tulane, Perry Nickerson's, I think, one of the more underrated football players.
I love that guy.
I think he's a great slot cover cornerback, terrific ball skills. He can find the ball quickly in flight. I think he ends up being a middle round pick. And he's a former track guy at West Jeff, so tells me that in these Olympics that they're going to go through, he's going to do real well.
And he's got amnesia.
And he's got something I can't teach. He's got ball skills. He can find it.
Yes.
Some guys are bigger than him, faster than him. They can't find the ball in flight. He can. And he was out on an island a lot at Tulane.
Yes.
Now, the young defensive end there, I think he gets picked late. And he didn't put up great numbers.
Is that Aguna?
Aguna.
Yes.
But, man, you find a guy that big, that fast, and he's new to the game. I bet he gets selected. And Dontrell Hilliard, when you look at Tulane's running backs throughout the years, those guys have kind of hit a little bit in the NFL. Yes. I take a long look at Hilliard late in the draft. Certainly, Tahume's, the brothers at Southeastern. Now, Mayall's a big guy. Now, he can't play on the edge. He's a guard.
Right.
But I think he's a guy to take a long look at. The brother coming off the edge as an outside linebacker in a 3-4, he's got to make it on special teams. And certainly what LSU's got. I mean,
go through those if you would.
Across the board. Darius Geis, to me, has always been, I've ranked him as a teens pick, 14 through 17. Somewhere in that range, that's where he's fallen on my board. And I see some of the guys, they say, oh, he's a second-round pick, and then another week later, he's at the 20th pick in the draft. I understand you got to do it for TV.
Yes.
But come on, you got to be consistent in what you're saying and what you're doing. Arden Key is a top 15 player. But the issues off the field are going to play paramount. But, you know, again, it just takes one team. Yeah, you had a guy last year, and Jerron Conley, who got picked in round 1, who had some serious off-the-field allegations on him that happened a couple days before the draft, and the Raiders picked him in round 1.
Yes.
So everything's going to work out with Arden there. I think the third guy off the board is DJ Chalk. And don't be surprised that he becomes one of the top 3 or 4 or 5 players picked in the second round. He's that good of a player. A big receiver. When he's going to test, a lot of people, oh, he's only 5'11". 5'11".
Right.
He's 6'2.5" plus.
Right.
He's 220 pounds plus. He can play on special teams. Speed guy. He's gotten better as a cover to beat coverage downfield with moves. Dante is who he is. He is great speed, and he's always an offensive player that's played on defense.
Right. Do you think he plays on defense or offense?
Oh, no. He plays on defense. I think his spot is in the nickel, where he covers the slot guy. But he is, you know, he's 175 pounds, kind of soaking wet, and he is not going to get much bigger than what he is. A lot of people compare him to Adoree Jackson. The big difference is Adoree was unbelievable as a punt kick return guy. LSU wanted him to be that guy, but he wasn't real steady catching the punts. And even the year before when he returned punts, he didn't put up the huge numbers. I give him another shot at that, though, because with that type of speed, he's unbelievable. So I think he ends up being a second, third-round pick.
Beautiful. Mike, tell the folks about the great draft guide, how folks can get it, when it's going to be coming out.
Sure. They can go to saintsreport.com, MikeDetillier.com, and we'll have it out first week in April.
Always look forward to it.
Thank you, Eric.
Mike, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, buddy.
Mike Detillier, always a great job. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV at 10 p.m. Also on Pelican Sports Television. That's Friday nights at 9. Catch me on the radio weekdays, noon to 2 on Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2. You can download the iHeartRadio app, take the show with you anywhere. You can listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com or at sports1280.com. Follow me on Twitter at Eric_Asher. And we'd always appreciate you checking us out on Facebook as well. Again, thanks to Mike Detillier for joining us tonight. Great job, man. Really, really great information. Also to the WLA production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Trey Lopez, Naila Jones, and my director, William Hill. For Mike Detillier, I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. That was cool.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
Located on Lake Pontchartrain, Brisby's Lakefront Restaurant and Bar offers traditional West End favorites, a scenic view, oysters, and numerous tasty options. More information is available at 504-304-4125 or brisbysrestaurant.com.